Good day to you all. My name is Elizabeth Msipa and I'm a second-year law student at Africa University taking out the course of Law of Evidence under Mr Nkosana Maphosa. In today's video, I will be talking to you guys about the topic of unconstitutionally obtained evidence. I will be talking to you about what it is and what is done when courts are faced with unconstitutionally obtained evidence. I hope you enjoy this video. Unconstitutionally obtained evidence refers to evidence that has been obtained in a manner that violates or infringes the rights of the accused persons. Such rights include the right to privacy or the right to human dignity. When dealing with unconstitutionally obtained evidence, many legal systems in the world have implemented the exclusionary rule, which came about as a result of the case of Weeks versus the United States of America. The exclusionary rule entails that evidence that has been obtained in means that violates the rights of the accused persons should not be admissible in the court of law. Obtained evidence, many legal systems in the world have implemented the exclusionary rule, which came about as a result of the case of Weeks versus the United States of America. The exclusionary rule entails that evidence that has been obtained in means that violates the rights of the accused persons should not be admissible in the court of law. Zimbabwe is one of the countries that have also adopted the exclusionary rule in their legal system. I will read for you the provision that is found in Section 70, subsection 3 of the Constitution. It reads, "In any criminal trial, evidence that has been obtained in a manner that violates any provision of this chapter must be excluded if the admission of the evidence would render the trial unfair or would otherwise be detrimental to the administration of justice or the public interest." This means that when dealing with unconstitutionally obtained evidence, the court looks at two things: whether it would render the trial unfair, and this would be considering the rights of the accused person, or whether it would be detrimental to the administration of public justice or the public interest. The reason why the exclusionary rule exists is because of the supremacy of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, found in Section 2 of the Constitution, which I will read for you. It reads, "This Constitution is the supreme law of Zimbabwe, and any law, practice, custom, or conduct inconsistent with it is invalid to the extent of the inconsistency. The obligations imposed by this Constitution are binding on every person, natural or juristic, including the state and all executive, legislative, and judicial institutions and agencies of government at every level, and must be fulfilled by them." The precedent set by the case of Weeks versus the United States of America was this: that evidence that has been obtained in illegal searches is inadmissible in the court of law. This means that if police obtain evidence without a search warrant, that evidence is not admissible in the court of law. However, this is not an absolute right, and it is limited by the Criminal Procedure and Evidence Act, Section 54, subsection 2A and B, which I will read for you. It reads, "Where a police officer of such class as the minister may designate considers on reasonable grounds that it is necessary for the purpose of investigating or detecting an offense to examine any books, documents, or other records, he may, without a warrant, A, enter any premises for the purpose of examining such books, documents, or other records, and..." In the case of BT versus Majuta and others, BT made an application to the court to exclude evidence that was obtained illegally by the police officers. He says that the police officers obtained his call logs without his permission. The police, on the other hand, stated that they had made several attempts to legally obtain this evidence from BT, who did not conform with him. The judge dismissed the application on the basis of this. The law does not prohibit lawful invasion of privacy. What it prohibits is wanton and unlawful invasion of privacy. In this case, as the police appear to be acting according to law, the application cannot succeed. This means that the police had made attempts to obtain the evidence legally, but it was the applicant who was not compliant with their request. The right to a fair trial is a right that is absolute and is not limited in the Constitution of Zimbabwe. This means that the court of law in Zimbabwe has the right to ensure that every single accused person has a fair trial. I'm sure you've all heard of the Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. I will not finish them, but I will read for you from the Constitution of Zimbabwe. It reads, "The accused has the right to be informed promptly of the charge in sufficient detail to enable them to answer it, to choose a legal practitioner and at their own expense, to be represented by the legal practitioner, to be represented by a legal practitioner assigned by the state and at state expense, of substantial injustice would otherwise result, to be informed promptly of the rights conferred by paragraphs D and E, to remain silent and not to testify or be compelled to give self-incriminating evidence." These are one of the core foundations of the exclusionary rule. If these are not followed by the police, then the evidence will most likely not be submitted in the court of law. Onus of proof refers to the burden of proving the existence of a certain state of affairs. In relation to unconstitutionally obtained evidence, this means the burden of proving that the rights have been infringed or the rights have not been infringed. In the past, there have been many questions on whom the burden of proof must fall on in relation to unconstitutionally obtained evidence cases. The Constitution of Zimbabwe does not expressly say who the burden of proof falls on. However, there are certain decisions that have been made in cases that show whom the burden of proof falls on. In the case of the State versus Wonderful Manjuro, the accused, stood before the court on 2 counts of murder. He argued that the statement which had been submitted by the prosecution, in which he admitted to committing the crimes, was unconstitutionally obtained. This led to the court stopping the main trial and having what is known as a trial within a trial. In a trial within a trial, this is a proceeding in which the court seeks to verify the accused's argument that the evidence has been obtained unconstitutionally. In this case, the accused argued that the statement that the police had obtained was obtained unconstitutionally because, firstly, they had pointed a gun to his head; secondly, they had beat his feet 20 times; thirdly, they had lodged him over a log which was held by chairs. They coerced him to give the statement and they told him what to say. When these accusations that are brought up by the accused are put hand in hand with the Constitution of Zimbabwe, it is clear that the police have obtained the evidence unconstitutionally. I will read for you the relevant sections. Section 53 reads, "No person may be subjected to physical or psychological torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment." 51C requires that an accused person must be treated humanely with respect for their inherent dignity. Section 50, subsection 4C, an accused person has a right not to be compelled to make a confession or an admission. In this case, the onus of proof rests on the state to prove that there was no infringement of rights. In order to do this, the prosecution brought forth the police officers who conducted the interviews of the accused persons. The police officers offered up their statements of what happened, and they showed video evidence of the accused taking them to the crime scene. The judge reviewed these videos and found that there was no coercion that was present. There's several significant occurrences that happened in this case that I've just told you guys about. I will read for you the significances. The first being the aspect of a trial within a trial. This is a trial which takes place outside of the main criminal trial. It deals with questions on the admissibility of evidence, such as determining whether evidence was obtained constitutionally if the accused claims it was obtained illegally. Here, the accused is allowed to give an account of how the evidence was obtained unconstitutionally in the absence of the police forces in order to avoid intimidation. The state is required to prove the evidence was obtained constitutionally, as already discussed in the video. In this case, the state's evidence came about as the detectives detailing their own account and also the analysis of the video evidence. The judge was satisfied with this video. What matters when looking at the topic of unconstitutionally obtained evidence is the procedure which is followed by the police officers in order to obtain the evidence. In the case of State versus Changirai alleged that the evidence that the police had brought forth was unconstitutionally obtained because it was obtained after 48 hours of him being detained without a warrant. The evidence which the state brought forth in order to prove that the evidence was not unconstitutionally obtained was the evidence of the detective who carried out the investigation. What happened in this case is that the accused was arrested in one station and later moved to a different station. This means that the detective from the second police station had no idea what time he was detained from in the first police station. The court does not overlook the negligence of the police officers in not making sure that they checked the time in which he was detained in the first police station. However, they submitted that the evidence was indeed not unconstitutionally obtained. The court is expected to strike a balance between safeguarding the rights of the accused person and of the public interest. If evidence obtained accidentally, like in the previous case, then the court prioritizes public interest. However, if it is obtained illegally on purpose, then the court prioritizes the rights of the accused person. Evidence which works in favor of the victim or public interest must still be excluded if it takes away the right of a fair trial from the accused. It is a constitutional order that must be valued. If the breach is, however, trivial and a mistake, then the court will admit the evidence. However, if it is the opposite, the court is less likely to admit the evidence. This means in determining admissibility, the courts must consider the process in which the evidence was obtained, but not to the extent of disregarding the interests of society. The second test seeks to protect the public and control crime rates in a way. Dangerous accused persons who are known to be guilty shall not be acquitted on the basis that evidence has been obtained illegally. Hence, there is great emphasis for the police to always act lawfully in order to instill trust in the legal system. When it comes to unconstitutionally obtained evidence, there's a reason why the exclusionary rule exists. It exists to protect the rights of all citizens despite the fact that they have been accused of a crime. This rule places great expectation on the police force to follow the Constitution and uphold the rights of the people. In order for justice to be served, police forces must ensure they investigate honestly according to the laws of the Constitution. However, in Zimbabwe, the subject matter of unconstitutionally obtained evidence does not simply end with inadmissibility in the court of law. If, for example, your property has been unlawfully searched and seized by the police officers, if that evidence is still not admitted in the court of law, you have the right to seek civil remedy. This is found in the Criminal Procedure and Evidence Act, Section 258, subsection 4. This is for civil compensation claim. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope that you have been enriched with information on the topic of unconstitutionally obtained evidence. Be free to like my video, share and comment, and give me any feedback.